My name is Paige Bailey. I lead our developer relations team at Google DeepMind as of a few weeks ago. Before coming back to DeepMind, I was at Google Brain. So I joined around 2017, 2018, right about the time that the Transformer paper was coming out. And spent about a year away during the pandemic at GitHub, helping out with some of the projects there. And then came back to Google just over a couple of years ago, right around the time when all of the generative models excitement began. My background, though, is geophysics and applied math. So the majority of my research when I was just getting started was in the physical sciences and in the space sciences. And I really, really feel like generative AI as applied to not just the physical sciences, but also the biological sciences, things like chemistry, are exactly where we're going to be seeing the most impact, not just from a research perspective, but also in terms of the amount of good that can be done in the world. So I'm really grateful to be here today, excited to talk to y'all. Excited to hear all of your questions. And as I'm going through some of the capabilities that we have here today from AI Studio and the Gemini APIs, please feel free to shout out questions, to ask them in the chat. I'll try to monitor and answer along the way. It's usually a lot more fun if we have questions. Cool. So with that, I'm going to get started. Generative AI is transforming everything we do at Google about how we build our products. I'm sure you've seen all of the AI integrations pop up in things like Docs and Sheets, but also in all of our cloud platforms and YouTube, of course, Waymo. All of these things are using generative models and have been kind of really, really accelerating their use of generative models over the last couple of years. And Google's been an AI company from day one. I think I started using TensorFlow when it first came out around 2015, and then JAX a couple of years later. And we've been producing models along the way, both at Brain and at DeepMind, including our latest family of models called Gemini. Gemini is multimodal, which means that I can understand many different data types natively. So it can understand video, images, audio, text, code, all of the above all at once. You can give it things like PDF documents with embedded images, tables, even live streaming video of you trying to accomplish tasks. And Gemini is able to understand it all at once, just kind of by sending the tokens into the model. You're also able to use languages other than English. So if you come from a background that speaks multiple languages or kind of long tail languages, all of that should still be supported. And Gemini is getting better at all of the above every single day. We have 4 different t-shirt sizes for our models, or you can think of them as kind of like t-shirt sizes. Pro, which is our largest version. This is generally the most capable version of the Gemini models. It's a little bit slower, but it usually gives you better results. They often, pro caliber models often get released as something called EXP. If you see some of the models called EXP in the demos that we're about to show, you can think of them as kind of the pro size. Flash, which is our most commonly used version of the Gemini models. It's very small, lightweight, designed for performance. Flash 8B, which is the kind of smallest version that we have externally. You can think of it as kind of like a flashlight. And it is around 3.5 cents per million tokens. With Flash 8B, you could record everything that you do on your laptop screen 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and be able to analyze it, summarize it, take action on it for less than the price that you might pay for a fancy cup of coffee per week. So it's pretty magical to see the kinds of things that you can do when these models start getting ubiquitous, and also when the cost for all of the models goes down to 0. You can really make intelligence just kind of ambient, as opposed to something that is a every once in a while sort of task. We also have a tiny, tiny version of Gemini called Gemini Nano, which is small enough that we fit it on our Pixel devices, so mobile phones, as well as in Chrome browsers. So if you're using the latest Chrome Canary release, congratulations, there's a little tiny version of the Gemini model that's embedded within the browser, stored locally. And that means that you don't have to have a Wi-Fi connection. You can just use Gemini natively to answer questions and to analyze and summarize data. And this is getting better every single day. Our latest flagship model is called Gemini 2.0 Flash, and we also have some other versions of Gemini 2 called our thinking model and our experimental models that have been released as well. It's still natively multimodal, so understands all of those data types that I had mentioned before, and it also supports multimodal outputs. And the reason why this is interesting and exciting is because historically models were able to output text, they were able to output code, but they weren't able to do output audio or output text and images. And with Gemini 2, now you can do all of the above. So not only is the model great at generating text and code, it's also really, really good at generating audio as well as interleaved text and images. We also have this Gemini 2.0 thinking model, which is capable of making plans and kind of expressing its thinking before giving a final output. And then, of course, we've got all of our GA models that are our Gemini 1.5 series. All of these are available for you to try today on aistudio.google.com for free. And I strongly, strongly recommend taking a look. If you remember nothing else from this presentation, just remember aistudio.google.com. The models have been doing pretty good on leaderboards. So I grabbed the screenshot yesterday. The two Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking and EXP 1206 models are at the top of the LMSys leaderboard. Above DeepSeek, which was released this past week and has made a big stir. Was really exciting to see an open source model kind of lead the path for some of these capabilities. And then also Gemini 2 Flash is doing pretty well. It's around rank number 4 on the leaderboard. Also recommend, if you're interested in kind of these public-facing benchmarks, artificialanalysis.ai, which compares things like quality versus speed, cost versus speed, cost versus quality. And as you're building systems, those can be, you know, trade-offs that you try to make as you're making things economic. As I mentioned, it's got a very long context length and MOE architecture, enhanced performance, especially compared to our kind of Palm 2 and Gemini 1 models. And we've also invested pretty significantly in those reasoning capabilities. We've seen up to 10 million tokens supported in long context in our research models, 2 million tokens generally available today. And I think we talk about this a lot as to why we're excited to have you know, long context models, but we don't really give a clear description of why that's important. And so Gemini, you know, supports 2 million tokens, which is quite a bit more compared to some of the other models out there. But it means that you can give a lot of information to the model right at inference time. So you don't have to set up RAG, you don't have to set up vector databases, you don't have to worry about fine tuning. If you just want a prototype, you can just say like, hey, Gemini, here's my code base. Here are multiple code bases. Here is all of the emails that I've sent in the last year. Now, please summarize them or tell me all the action items. Here is the entire first season of Silicon Valley without commercials. Now, please tell me all of the things that Erlich Bachman has eaten within Silicon Valley season 1. You can do that all at inference time, as opposed to trying to set up some retrieval in order to make that happen. And it also means that you can do really interesting experiments with multimodal long context workflows. So as an example, you can film yourself attempting to accomplish a task, and ask Gemini to create a tutorial for that. You can send in a video of yourself encountering a bug along with a code base and have Gemini fix and find the place in the code base that needs to be changed in order to resolve the bug. All of these things are possible all within AI Studio. And with that, I think we should go into demos. I'm usually not a fan of slides, so we're gonna go into we're going to go right into AI Studio. So how many folks on the call have heard of AI Studio before? Just raise hands or do emoji. And if there aren't that many, I see it. Okay, good. I see some thumbs up. This is wonderful. So AI Studio is really the best place for kind of getting started with Google DeepMind's latest models. As soon as models are released, they're available in AI Studio to try. And then you also have a bunch of different configuration options, some of which you can see here on the right side of the screen. So things like structured outputs, code execution, function calling, grounding with Google search. And then also, all important, you can customize and configure your safety settings. So for your safety settings, you can kind of turn off all the filters, turn them on, whatever works right for you and your project. And you can also change some of the other parameters that you include for your model. You can do real-time streaming, which we'll try in a second. And then also we have things like starter apps. We give you the ability to tune models within AI Studio. So if you did want to fine-tune a Gemini model, you could do that, and it would make it available just as an API that you could call. And you can also generate API keys directly from AI Studio. So creating API keys that automatically get attached to Google Cloud projects. And you can generate API keys and use them for free, which is pretty cool. Excellent. So for AI Studio, in order to get started, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is either upload a file or connect to Drive. So you can upload any arbitrary file. I'm just going to add a video that you see here in sample media. So you can see a video of a dinosaur, and I'm going to ask, please, or a walk through a gallery filled with dinosaurs. And I'm going to say, please summarize this video and generate a table with timestamps for all of the dinosaurs that you see in the video. Make sure to include a fun fact about each dinosaur. And I am also going to make sure that I spell dinosaurs correctly. I'm going to hit run. We're going to cross our fingers. And you can see here that the 5-minute long video ends up being just around 89,000 tokens. So still well within this 1 million token context window for Gemini 2 Flash. So if I scroll down, you see here a video summary. So it's saying it's a tour through a museum exhibit. This is correct. It includes a T-Rex, which is a very good dinosaur, not my favorite dinosaur, but still acceptable. And it also has kind of the timestamps in the video for the different dinosaur types, as well as fun facts about each dinosaur. So bite force, Allosaurus, theropod, very cool. You can also, as an example, if you click this Get Code button, you can see a blob of Python code that does everything from file handling to configuration to determining the model name to even incorporating files uploading and kind of the prompts that you're using, basically everything that you did within the UI. So if you do an experiment within the UI, you can generate the code that would be required in order to replicate whatever you just accomplished. And you can also open up that code directly in Colab. If you're not a Python human, it also has JavaScript code, kind of Swift or Dart, or even just kind of the curl commands that you could run from a command line in order to replicate the experiment that you just tried, which is pretty nifty. We also have the ability to do things like grounding with Google search, function calling, which gives Gemini the ability to access and to use tools, and then also things like code execution, which gives Gemini the ability to write and execute Python code. So a reason why this might be interesting is if, so as an example, if I go back to creating a prompt, if I ask something like, please tell me the names of the latest models that Google DeepMind has released, and I hit run, um, it's going to tell me some things that might be a little bit outdated, right? So if I look at large language models, it doesn't know yet that Gemini 2 has come out. It's talked a little bit about some of the more dated models, and it only seems to have knowledge up to 2024, early 2024. And that's because that's when the training data cutoff was for the Gemini models. If you add this configuration setting right here, which is grounding with Google search, so I'm going to turn that on the right, and then I'm going to rerun this query by clicking the little sparkle. What happens is that Gemini automatically uses Google search to ground its outputs and results. So it's using retrieval kind of out of the box for you to make sure that all of the information is accurate and useful. And you can see here, it even adds and cites sources for each one of the searches, which is quite nice. If you click Get Code, you can see that configuration, and I'm going to show Python because Python is what I'm most familiar with. Hopefully, folks on the call are also familiar with Python. But you can see here that to use that is just a one-line code addition to add search as a tool within Gemini's model. So another thing that is a little bit similar to this, and I'm going to go over to the Gemini app. So this is not AI Studio. This is Gemini.google.com. There's something that was just recently released called Deep Research. I'm not sure if folks have heard of that, but it's a similar sort of style of kind of search and retrieval and kind of deploying agents to help you accomplish a task. If I ask something like, please help me plan a fun weekend hiking adventure in this Presidio in San Francisco, make sure to reference nearby restaurants, and also give me the bus routes that run by the Presidio. You can ask Deep Research to help with this. And what it does behind the scenes is it generates a plan. It kind of asks for your approval of the plan. So it's a little like having an intern to help with your assignments. And then once that's done, it kind of asks you to double check and to verify, and then is kind of allows you to go about your work. So Timothy just asked, are there any limits to using AI Studio? I'm going to pull up the pricing page for AIS while we wait. And we do have kind of rate limits for the free tier of model usage. So you can see here there are like 15 requests per minute, 1,500 requests per day for Gemini 1.5 Flash for the free tier. And then you can also see kind of pay-as-you-go prices if you did want to move above the free tier. So there are a little bit of limitations in terms of usage, but if you pay for the APIs, then all of your data is kept private, and then also the technical limitations. Let me check. Discuss the technical limitations of adding more context. 1 million limit is better than 4K, but both are way too low to fit in genomic data files. That's a great question from Thomas. So I will say that if you are dealing with these kind of larger files, so things like genomic data files, if you're able to create kind of a representation of the files, or even just kind of a visual representation. Usually those are a little bit easier for Gemini to understand. I also think that it's helpful for building plans, and I'm going to uh, kick off this research just so it's running in the background while we talk. It's also helpful for building plans as to how you might be able to sort of approach different research. As an example, there's a model that we released called the Gemini 2.0 Thinking, and I'm going to pull it up over in AI Studio. So this is the Flash Thinking Experimental. And what you could do is you could ask something like, please help me plan how I might analyze, or please help me understand what I would need to do to replicate this paper. And we're going to go on archive. And I'm going to find a random deep learning paper. Or unless somebody has a favorite paper, feel free to plug your perfection. I am going to take this paper, download the PDF, and then we're going to see how well Gemini can do at replicating the approach for this paper. Yeah. So I'm uploading the file right now. I should be able to upload the PDF directly. It takes a little while just because I think this might be a paper including a lot of graphics, which is wonderful. And then it extracts it, kind of adds it into Google Drive. And then after the paper is extracted, I should be able to run. And we'll see how it works. It looks like this paper is a real-time alerting system for COVID-19 and other stress events using wearable data, which looks very cool. And an internal error has occurred. That is, let's try again. Sometimes whenever there's sort of throttling on the TPUs and folks are using the platform all at the same time, there can be challenges for the model to get up and running. Let me see. Let me see instead. Let's try with just the regular Gemini and see how it's able to respond. I've been interacting with Elixir B embeddings models that your research team released a few months ago. I was wondering if I can tune Gemini to produce texts from the embeddings generated with the Elixir B model. So you can use embeddings models with Gemini. That's something that we have documentation on, at least for the text embeddings that are available on Google Cloud. But I would strongly recommend you to just experiment with the use case that you're thinking of within the AI Studio interface itself. and see how far you can get. In general, whenever I try to work on an experiment with AI as applied to a domain, I start with prompting in a very detailed way, then try retrieval if the prompting does not work with additional context, and then you know, something like embeddings. But this is so the paper's core components: develop and validate a real-time system, data sources, so Fitbits and Apple Watches. There were 3 algorithms, and then the alerting system, validation, and then replication steps: develop or obtain the My PhD app, set up cloud infrastructure to store data, implement the algorithms. I'm not sure if these are the correct websites, but that looks correct. And then recruit participants, data collection, real-time alert generation, validation, challenges and considerations. Does this look right or close to being right? Okay.
I think it looks right.
Yeah, excellent. Very cool. There was one of my colleagues at DeepMind just recently. Let me pull up what he did. He's experimenting with having Gemini inspire its own research, and he posted on Twitter. I gave Gemini 2.0 Flash experimental thinking 2 documents. So this paper from NeurIPS and this paper from ACL, and said, combine the ideas of these 2 papers and create a new prompting method. And in 32 seconds, it produced a new prompting method with a summarization and kind of next steps, including research. So you can even say like, hey, here are 5 different papers. Help me understand what the next approach for my research would be based on the things from these 5 papers, and design the experiment. And then this is kind of the outputs from the thinking model. Let me pull it up real quick. Yeah. So it's pretty magical to see how much of just kind of an inspiration starter this can be for doing research, and also a really great thought partner for designing experiments. Nice. And then so I'm going to go back to prompting. And we're going to try again. It might be that thinking was just having some challenges with a PDF, but you can also ask it something like, please help me create a Frogger game using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Make sure to use emoji. And there's this little thinking section that pops up in the UI before you start getting the code and the text outputs. And you can see the different code and text that gets produced. So there's quite a bit. Wow. And then when you zoom up to the thinking section, you can see Gemini has kind of explained how it was able to produce the outputs that you see below. So the first section is around understanding the requirements. The second section is around choosing emoji, so the different emoji that are possible, structuring the HTML, styling, JavaScript logic, rendering functions. And I'm actually kind of curious now. So we've got HTML. I'm going to go over to JS Fiddle, which is kind of a code playground that allows you to visualize HTML and JavaScript and CSS. I'm going to copy this HTML. I'm going to copy the CSS and paste it. And then I am going to copy the JavaScript and paste it. And then I think that's all. Yes. And then we're going to zoom over to where I've copied the code, and we're going to see how well it did. So run. Oh, wow. There's a little Frogger. And is able to move. Oh, this is cool. And he got from the green stuff all the way over to the other side of the road, which is pretty nifty. And if you like, I was using my mouse to move the frog. You can see the game over. Excellent. Cool. So, so as I mentioned, you can kind of generate the code to replicate whatever you just saw in the UI. You can compare models. And then we also have something with Gemini where you can do streaming. And sometimes this doesn't work quite well on GBC, but we are going to try, or at least like try and cross our fingers and hope that the demo gods are with us today. So streaming real time gives Gemini, you can kind of select these voices, a broad spectrum of them. You can also do all of those things that I had mentioned before around kind of function calling and grounding and code execution. But you can also show Gemini your screen. And so I am going to show Gemini the tweet from my friend that I had just mentioned before. Hey, Gemini, could you please read what you see on the screen right now?
Sure, I can do that. The screen shows a post by Swaroop Mishra on X, formerly Twitter, about the power of thinking plus long context reasoning. He gave Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking Experimental 0121 Model 2 documents and asked it to combine ideas from those papers to create a new prompting method. The AI produced a structured chain of thought instruction prompting method in 32 seconds. Mishra said it was a single, unedited attempt with no prompt engineering or hyperparameter tuning.
Amazing. So Gemini, could you please talk like a pirate and repeat that first paragraph again?
Hi, matey. I can do that for ye. Shiver Me Timbers, the post B from Swaroop Mishra on X, says that thinking plus long context reasoning be incredibly powerful. He gave Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking Experimental
That's awesome.
012.
Thank you, Gemini. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Nope, that's all.
Okay, have a great day.
You too. Awesome. And so let me zoom back over. Can you also see my screen, hopefully? Beautiful. So that's one of the things that you can do with screen sharing. You can also just have your kind of video from your phone or from just using your laptop camera, and have Gemini kind of help with some of those descriptions as well. It does all of the same things that the model can do. So it can describe your code. It could tell you if the design of your website is a little bit off. It could tell you, the different kinds of trees that you see. So lots of different things to experiment with. You can also generate images directly within Gemini. So creating novel images, like please generate an image of a cute otter riding an Amtrak train in Texas. Then hit run. This is using Imagine 3, which is one of our image generation models. You can also select the aspect ratio for your image and how many of results you want to show. That is a very cute otter. And then you can also explore kind of spatial understanding. So this is bounding boxes. Gemini is pretty good at generating bounding boxes natively. And so you can see an origami fox and an armadillo and some shadows. a window frame, and then also able to detect bounding boxes for things like for specific foods. So like cheese, and then donuts, lychees, strawberries, and you can also do things like code execution. And I want to talk about this a little bit, just because I think this is very, very cool for folks who are kind of writing code and doing data analysis. With Gemini, you're able to kind of have it write and execute code in a sandboxed environment for you. So as an example, I'm going to take the iris dataset, which is just kind of folks are on the call are probably familiar with the iris dataset. It's often used as kind of just a test for machine learning data. It's a little bit of information about irises, and then kind of classifications, so setosa and versicolor and virginica. And so I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, please generate a cluster representation for the iris, or for the data set that you see below. Generate the plot in Python. And then I'm going to add the data, and we're going to turn on code execution, and we'll see how well it does. So it's doing a cluster evaluation. It's talking about data loading and preparation. It seems to be working a little bit. Sometimes whenever you add a lot of information in the prompt, it takes Gemini a little while of time to think, but we'll see. And then, yep, here we go. And so we have data loading and preparation, plotting a figure. It gives you the silhouette score, and then also generates the plot for you. So you can have Gemini both write and run and execute the Python code and show the different colors for the data that you've just added, which is quite nice. So this is, as I mentioned, just by turning on code execution, you can have the different information incorporated for the data. Excellent. And I also just want to mention, it's not only the Python standard library, it's also all of these kind of supplemental data science libraries that are being used in order to come across this result and then to make the visualization. It was even able to figure out that you should probably use k-means clustering, which is pretty nifty. Beautiful. And so let me zoom back over. We have, as I mentioned, the image generation model called Imagine 3. It's capable of generating static images that are pretty beautiful in a variety of styles. So all of these were just generated using Imagine. We've also recently released VO2, which gives you the ability to generate short videos using Gemini, or short videos using just text or images as inputs. So you can describe in text what you would like to have generated, or say, here's an image, now please animate it in this way. And VO is able to make that happen. We also have Project Mariner, which kind of is a computer use agent, which gives Gemini the ability to point and click and kind of accomplish tasks for you in the browser. And then I'm going to zoom back over to the thing that we were trying before, deep research. And it looks like it's still researching websites, which is quite cool. But there are around 352 that it's incorporated. I will show you one of the ones that I'd done previously around bathroom remodeling. But what deep research does is it produces this report for you that's pretty professional in terms of quality. It cites sources, so you can kind of see what was used to generate the report, and it also lists the references at the bottom based on any kind of research question that you might have that you would want to kind of look around the internet in order to solve. So this was helpful for me personally because bathroom remodeling, I am not gifted at contractor finding. I can write code, but I am not good at the other pieces. Cool. And so with that, I'm really hoping that folks have some ideas of how Gemini and how these models and these tools can impact their research, how they can, how all of y'all can use it to kind of, sort of explain things, to interact, to just kind of upload PDFs and understand. And if, as I mentioned, if you remember just one thing, please go try out Gemini 2 in aistudio.google.com. And if you have any questions whatsoever, I am always available to talk or to help point you in the right direction. And my email address is webpage@google.com. So thank you. And like I said, I hope this was useful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Awesome.
I think I'm kind of
I'm
curious
kind of
about the video.
The video or?
The videos you're showing, of, like when you ask the video to read the X post.
Yes.
What are some of the use cases for that you think would be good for someone who's doing data analysis or someone who's learning how to do data analysis?
Oh, that's a great question. So let me pull up an example data set. So Kaggle, so Google has a project called Kaggle, which has a broad variety of data sets that are available for folks to use and to try and to explore. So this one is motion recognition with piano data sets. So 200 samples, each representing a piano composition annotated with its emotional category. And then this is kind of the data set itself. One thing that we could try, and again, crossing fingers and hoping for the demo gods. Hey there, Gemini. I'm thinking about doing a project for classification of music into different emotional categories. And this is a data set that seems to be doing something similar. Could you help me understand what what is valence actually? Yeah, so these audio features, I'm highlighting them right now. What is MFCCs? Yeah, how would that relate to emotions?
Well, Paige, do you hear any audios from the Gemini?
Oh, Oh, you weren't hearing the Gemini versions? Or you weren't hearing the Gemini responses?
Yeah, we're not hearing the Gemini responses.
Yep. So let me I was hearing the Gemini responses on my laptop. But it sounds like it was describing the different portions of the MFCCs. I don't know why it wouldn't have shared the audio in the video chat. But you can ask for help kind of explaining data sets, walking through data sets, and then also if anybody on the call has used Colab, hopefully there are at least a few folks who have used Colab. I'm going to pull up I'm going to pull up one of my personal Colab instances. Please do not judge me by the number of untitled notebooks that I have. But if folks haven't already seen, we've integrated Gemini directly within the UI, which means that you can have Gemini kind of help you solve tasks. When you add a new code cell, you can also say something to the effect of, like, please create a linear regression using the iris data set, and then hit enter. And the Gemini is able to generate some code. And so you can see kind of the code get added automatically. It also works inline. So you could say something like import libraries required for doing audio pre-processing. And then import, and it should be able to work. You can also say explain error and have fixes automatically applied. So it says that that I would need to load from a URL, and it's pointed out kind of a place that might have the iris data frame. So let's take a look here. Try except print iris CSV not found. So instead, we're going to have the data frame here, which is what Gemini recommended. And then there's the linear regression of petal length versus petal length. And then in terms of imports, you can also see there's autocomplete for the number, the libraries that would be required for doing auto preprocessing. So Gemini directly baked into Colab, which hopefully helps folks as they're doing data analysis.
Thank you, Paige.
Yep, absolutely.
Another question in the chat. How can I use research? How is it different from Perplexity?
Let's see. Looking at the chat. I see. Oh, these are such nice comments. How can I use Gemini in my research? I'm currently using Perplexity. What do Gemini models offer that Perplexity does not? So I will say that the Gemini models are free. And if you're using Perplexity, that probably means that you're using the search capabilities or the grounding, which means that you can get kind of identical responses to what you would be getting from Perplexity, except perhaps a little bit more grounded and a little bit higher quality using Gemini with grounding in Google search, and it would also be for free. You can also do these things like code execution, structured outputs, function calling, And I don't believe that Perplexity supports those things just yet. So those would be some examples of things that you can do with Gemini that you cannot do with Perplexity.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. This was very fun. Thank you for everyone for the great questions and for the feedback. Thank you.